So one feature Schoology has that's really nice is the option to share resources amongst your grade level or amongst your whole school or even across the division. So one person could create an assessment for your grade level and then everybody would have access to that assessment. They could just with a few clicks add it to their Schoology courses. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a language arts assessment for 4th grade and we're going to put it into the shared resources and then assign it to our course from the shared resources. So when I'm at Schoology, I'm going to click up here on my resources tab. And when it loads, it's going to be your personal resources. So you are the only person that can see things in your personal resources. So you can organize things here that you're creating, but you wouldn't be able to share them. So if you want to share them, we're going to go to Group. And you're going to navigate to your grade level. So I'm going to come down here to grade 4 since I'm creating a 4th grade assessment. And then I'm going to start organizing. I'm going to create a folder to house my language arts assessment. So I'm going to add a resource, add folder, and I'm going to create a language arts folder. I'm going to create that. And within that, my assessment is from Unit 2, so I'm going to add another folder just for Unit 2. Alright, so now anybody who's looking through this, it's going to make sense where they would find their Unit 2 assessment. They'd go to Language Arts, Unit 2, and it's going to be in here. So once I'm inside, I'm going to go to Add Resources, and I'm going to add an assessment template. So this is called Grade 4 Unit 2 Assessment. This is for objectives 441, 443, 445, and 446. Alright, so I'm going to submit that. Then I'm going to set up my assessment just like normal. I'm going to go ahead and pause this and get this set up for you guys since I go over this in my other video. Okay, so I've got my question or my assessment set up and now it's ready for me to start adding questions. So the interesting thing about language arts assessments is that you have a passage and then you've got a bunch of questions, which is a little bit different from creating a math or a science assessment because each question is a standalone question. So you have a couple of options for how you want to set that up. You could use this add text feature and you can paste in from your assessment, you could paste in the text. So I've got my whole passage pasted in here. Now what that's going to do is it's going to make the very first page of this assessment when the students go in, that's going to be their passage. Then you would have the questions on the subsequent following pages. The only issue with that is that the students would have to click back to the first page if they wanted to see the passage again. So another option is to add this passage to each question before the question. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's say for my first question, I have a multiple choice. So I've got this question here. So I'm going to go to this multiple choice option. And when it loads up, in the first section where I'm going to write my question, before I write my question, I'm going to paste in the passage. And then below it, I'm going to type the question. So what is Alex and Karen's main conflict? And then you add in your answer types. I'm going to go split screen here to make this a little easier. Alright, so there wasn't a pump in the pull box. I'm going to pause this and I'll be right back with you guys after I've got it set up. Alright, so I've got my questions set up and I've got my answer choices here, and I've got my correct answer chosen. And you don't really have to edit any of these other options here. But then the last thing that we can do is down here, and we can add learning objectives. So if I go back to my passage, this is for objective 456. So when I click learning objectives, I'm going to go to custom learning objectives because these are going to be the Virginia Beach standards. So custom learning objectives, then school, we're in elementary, grade grade 4, reading. All right, so I said that this was 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to look for my objective. I'm going to click here. I'm going to link that objective and then confirm it. And I'm going to save my question. So what's going to be different now is when I preview my assessment, this was the way we set it up first. So the first page was going to be the passage, but the other option was that we have on our first question the passage, then at the bottom the question. So the students would have the opportunity to have the question, or sorry, the passage right above them, so they can go and highlight things, they can revisit it before they answer. So it's really up to you how you want to do that. Another option is to have a hard copy of the passage available so that students can just have it in front of them and they don't have to scroll back and forth. Although they should at some point be practicing scrolling on the computer during these language arts assessments, because that's how they're going to take the quarterlies. So just keep that in mind. We do want them to, have some opportunities to practice assessing like they're going to be tested once we get to quarterly time. All right. Now the reason that we linked our objective earlier is when we get into the more complicated, or not really complicated, but the more in-depth parts of Schoology assessments, we'll be able to have question banks that are linked by objectives, so you can find questions for your objectives a little easier. And then when you start using the gradebook for looking at scores and things, you can find those objectives and organize it by objectives more easily. So this is just going to set us up for making that easier once we do get to that point. All right, so now let's assume that we've gotten our entire assessment created. Pretend we've taken all of the questions from this assessment and we've recreated it into our Schoology assessment. Now, when I go to my resources folder, or if anybody else in my school goes to my resources folder and navigates through language arts, unit 2, and comes to this assessment, they can use the gear here on the end and they can add it to course, and then they're going to choose their course. So I'm going to add this to my sandbox. And if you have a folder that you'd like it to go into, you can put it there. If you have a due date that you want to set for it, you can put that there. Category, you will have more options because you'll have a course that's linked to Schoology, to Synergy. So you should have some more options for like what kind of assignment it is. So you would make this an assessment. Make sure that your scale is Virginia Beach proficiency so that the grading will use AP and DP and that good stuff. And then make sure that your grading period is set. And then you're going to add. And it'll tell you that the template was added. So when I navigate back to my course, I'm going to see it right here. This is so you're going to see that it put it right into your course, and you can go into edit to make sure that you enable submissions for it, because it's by default going to be disabled so that students don't accidentally take the assessment before you're ready, and then you're good to go. You're ready for the students to take it. So this is just a really good way to share resources with your grade level or with members of the school that could really save people time so that not everybody's creating the same assessment.